Hi everyone, can I introduce our next speaker is Brescia, and he is the founder of the Buffalo State Freethinkers. He brought many speakers and debates, hosted many debates at his campus group, and I'm sure he's going to have a lot of social media ideas and tips for you on how to do that. So, welcome.
Thank you guys. So first I just want to start by thanking Secular Student Alliance for having me here. It's really awesome to be here and finally make it to one of the conferences. And I also want to start off just by telling you guys something about myself. It's a little embarrassing. I have two big passions in life, and the first one is the secular student movement. It's no surprise. But the second one is that I love just the worst emo, screamo, metal music you'll ever have to hear. And that's on camera now. But it's true. If there's like a 20-something in skinny jeans with long hair like yelling into a microphone, it's like a 90% chance I'm going to find that just the pinnacle of artistic achievement.
Does that include Nickelback?
Oh, no. What? No. Oh, God. We're going to talk after this. But so for the longest time, I thought that these two passions had no overlap whatsoever. And for this presentation, I started thinking about, well, is there any overlap I can find? And I think I found some. So let's see if I can work this. Nope, I just turned my entire presentation off. Awesome.
Edit that out.
Oh, man, this is why you got to practice with this stuff. OK, wait, for real. Oh, there we go. Wonderful. OK, so the question I was interested in was, what, if anything, do secular student groups, like the one I ran in Buffalo, have in common with these up-and-coming emo, screamo, metal bands, whatever? And there's an obvious answer that probably leapt out to most of you right away. It's that your conservative uncle thinks both are working for the devil. And that's a good answer. That's a really good answer. You're not wrong. But it's not the answer I'm interested in. The answer I was interested in was that I think both stand to benefit from implementing very similar social media strategies. And obviously they're not going to be identical because unfortunately most of us can't release new songs and post trailers for our upcoming music videos. But that being said, I think a lot of the strategies that musicians have used, and used incredibly effectively, and really have just mastered the art of social media, in my opinion, can be used for student groups. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And I got a lot of stuff, so I'm going to try to fly through this. I'm not going to reference specific bands just to make this go faster. But if you want to ask me afterwards, I'd be happy to talk to you about specific artists I think are doing this well. So to begin with, running social media is a full-time job, especially if you're a student. And what a lot of student groups don't do, or at least in my experience talking to a couple for this presentation, was that none of them had one person who was in charge of running social media. And I think the same way your groups have presidents and vice presidents and treasurers, you have to have at least one person whose job it is full-time to manage those accounts. Because as we're going to see in the course of this presentation, there's a lot of work you can be doing, and there's a lot of things you can do to get the most out of your social media. And having one person who knows that's their job and can apply all these things consistently is, I think, something that more student groups should start doing. The second thing that a lot of student groups aren't doing is I don't think they're posting frequently enough. And I think that to get the level of engagement and appear very active on social media, you should be posting about 3 times probably a day. I think is a pretty achievable amount to aspire to. I think most of us can find at least 3 shareable, worthwhile things to say on our social media accounts every day. Especially for our student groups, when you really should be doing that. What a lot of student groups are doing that I think they should stop doing. The first one is linking their Facebook and Twitter accounts so that they can just type up a post and it will immediately be shared on both. I advise against that for a couple of reasons. First of all, I know it's very tempting to do and it seems very intuitive. After all, running social media is such a big job, surely this makes it easier, but I think that first and foremost, it ignores the differences in the formats between the two. And it's very difficult to tag and do all of the things you need to do and effectively engage both audiences. I also personally just think it comes off as seeming a little, impersonal is a good word to use. It makes it look like you're not really paying attention to both formats, and I think it decreases the chances that you're going to engage the audiences on both formats. That might not be true for all of you, but I think in my general experience. And the second one, that doesn't happen too often, but I think can happen and is also tempting, is to either allow your social media comment feeds to just become places where you're sort of having that awful internet god debate that just appeals to the lowest common denominator of our society. I don't think that happens too often, but I think it can happen. I know it happened on our page at least once or twice, and I would advise against just cutting that off as quick as you can. And secondly, also, just when you're sharing content, try to share content that explains why your group is awesome, why secularism is awesome, why skepticism is awesome, why humanism is awesome, and try to appeal to that wider audience. A big theme throughout this presentation that I want to emphasize is expanding your audience and engaging them. Try to appeal to as many people as possible. And sharing content that just appeals to people like us in this room, the people who already know the secular movement, it's not going to help grow your group, and it's not going to get the most you can get out of your social media strategy. All right, just a quick talk about logos. This was the Buffalo State Freethinkers logo. I think logos are incredibly important for a student group. If you don't have one, you should try to, before the semester starts again, get one. If you have any artist friends who can make one for you, that's how we got ours. Logos are especially important for social media because they make your group appear very professional, very put together, and they also help people recognize your content better across a variety of platforms. I mean, this week we put this on flyers. We made a banner out of this. We had this as our cover photo, I believe, for a while because it only really worked as a cover photo. And it was great because people could recognize our group very easily, and they knew when something was ours. Another type of logo that we never had, but that you see a lot when you browse through social media, especially for nonprofits, also for a lot of artists actually, is these initial logos. So I really like the Secular Student Alliance at Northwestern. I don't know if any of you guys are here, but no? All right. But I really like this logo. Initial logos work really well because they show up very well in the profile icon pictures. When people are scrolling through news feeds, they're often doing it on their phones, they're doing it on their tablets, and the pictures are very small. But pictures like this with just these initials are very easy to recognize, and people who aren't specifically searching for your content are very likely to be browsing through and see this much easier and recognize who it's from. Also, just as a branding note, I really like that they mixed the school mascot with the SSA logo. I just think stylistically that's really cool. It's just great branding, but it's not what this talk is really about, so I'm just going to move on. Building your audience. You should really, so a guiding principle that you hear a lot in the sort of social media community is that when you're in the real world, you should be promoting your social media. You should be promoting your social media. When you're on your social media, you should be promoting your group in the real world. Promote it use it in MeetSpace, promote your presence on cyberspace and MeetSpace. So there are a lot of opportunities I think that student groups miss to be promoting their organization. At the bottom of your flyers, I think you should absolutely just put very quickly, small font, just to be sure to like your group on Facebook and follow it on Twitter. When you are tabling, make sure that you remind people, make sure that you maybe even have something. We used to have it at the bottom of our sign-up sheet to have people go follow us. Another one is if you have faculty too, who are very sympathetic to you, have them send emails out to all the students with links, a little bio about your group and links. That's a great way for us to get freshmen to like our page, who are a really hard audience to reach otherwise. Another thing I want to talk about, make sure I'm on the right side, yes. Events that you can do for little or no money that can also be used to help build your social media presence. Unfortunately, we can't do little free acoustic shows, or most of us can't, who can't play guitar and God knows can't sing. But, oh, it's so bad. But we can do really easy events like this that don't take much time, they don't cost a lot of money, and I think they can be really effective. So one that we did, it's actually funny I said don't cost a lot of money because we did get money for this, but it doesn't have to. For Ask an Atheist Day, what we actually did was we were able to get the school to fund like $100 Kindle for us. And as a prize, basically all you had to do was ask a good question and give us an email address, and you were entered into a raffle to win that Kindle. We had something like, I wish I had the sheet, something like upwards of 40 people gave us their emails that day. So we sent them out a thank you email for asking such great questions, and at the bottom just included links to our social media. And if even half of those people actually follow and subscribe to you, you've got 20 followers right there, no problem. And it's a really great way too, just to promote yourself on the campus and make yourselves known, and of course, boost your social media following. Another event that we did that I absolutely loved was we used to do tarot card readings. I don't think I'm going to shock any of you when I tell you tarot card readings don't require psychic powers at all. I know, right? It's just a tactic called cold reading. It's relatively easy to learn. The hardest part's honestly just buying the cards and kind of putting on the whole show. But it's a great way to show how skepticism can really be applied to everyday life. And I mean, most people at least have a sort of faint belief and interest in psychic powers. So this was one of our most popular things we would do. We did this in the Carnival of Clubs. We had a line of like 50 people. We were the most popular attraction there. And what we would do is one of our members here would perform a tarot card reading, and after the reading, whoever had just had it would come over and I would hand them a sheet of paper, and the paper would just explain that the reading did not require psychic powers. It was done through cold reading. It would give a brief explanation of what cold reading was, and then at the bottom it would say, look, if you're interested in this, be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, our email, all that stuff. That's just a fun anecdote about how well this can work. The girl in that photo actually ended up becoming the treasurer of our club. So this really can help. Oh, yes, taking pictures. Okay. I'm being mildly surprised by what slides show up. It's not good, but taking pictures. A lot of groups, I don't think, really realize how important it is to take a lot of pictures. Whoever's running your social media, honestly, they have a smartphone. They should just, at every meeting, and especially at major events, just be sure to take pictures. If I'm not familiar with your group, and if I'm not familiar with the secular movement, the chances I'm going to read one of your posts is much less than the chance I'm going to look at pictures like this and know that your group is active, know what you guys are doing, and know that, you know, if I show up, there's going to be people there. And take pictures that show like what your group is doing. Definitely, I'm trying to think. Take pictures, especially at major events. Take pictures of your speakers. Take group photos too, which are really, really good, especially to give out to national organizations. So, in the pages versus groups kind of debate that I've heard a lot as to whether or not your student group should have a group or a page on Facebook, I'm pretty strongly in favor of pages, and here's why. If you're trying to expand your audience, and if you're trying to gather more of a following, the chances that someone's going to like your page as opposed to joining your group, I think, is significantly better. Liking a page feels much more passive, and it feels much less committal than it is for someone to join a group. Also, pages let your content appear in their news feeds, albeit there's a lot of worry about the scope of the reach, but still, I think that that's a very important thing to be able to come up there. Okay, just to move on.
Casey, are you saying instead of a group or in addition to?
Instead of in terms of reaching, instead of in terms of actually expanding your audience. I think groups are really good for just the members of your group to communicate with one another, probably in a closed setting. That's the place where you can share content that will more appeal to each other, share, you know, the funny memes that might offend some of your religious friends. That's the place where you can do that stuff, and you guys can like plan future events and whatnot. On your pages, though, it should really be about appealing to the masses, and I think that that's why I just prefer pages so much more. And I think that the chances, like I said, that someone's going to click like as opposed to joining your group are just significantly better. But in terms of finding shareable content, try to post content, like I said earlier, that explains why your group and why secularism is awesome. Also, though, try to post content that's relevant to what's going on in the news. So I'm just going to give one example. Oh, and also try to post content that's coinciding with what a lot of national organizations are doing. If you're not sure what to share, and if you needed ideas for what would be good to post, trying to meet 3 posts a day, check out and be sure to subscribe to a lot of the national organizations. Center for Inquiry, Freedom from Religion Foundation, Foundation Beyond Belief, of course, Secular Student Alliance. They post lots of great content, and it's an easy place to find things to share. Trying to share content too that, like I said, you can that's very relevant in the news. You can do that, and you can also do it in sync with what a lot of national organizations are doing. So here's a good example, I think, of what would make an awesome post. Recently, as many of you know, Dr. Oz got called in front of the Senate to testify for pushing some BS weight loss drug, which was just awesome. It was headline news. Around the same time, actually, the Center for Inquiry launched its Safe and Secular campaign, designed to keep religion and alternative medicine out of our health care. That would have been an amazing thing to post about for your group. just because you would have not only posted about what a national organization is doing, national secular organization, you would have also been commenting about a national news story that caught a lot of people's attention, including people who aren't familiar with your group and with what our movement does. And also it would have been very interesting to the people in your group, and it would have made an idea for a lot of great events. Now I know that unfortunately this happened during the summer when unfortunately none of us are really in school, but there will be other Dr. Oz testimonies in front of the Senate or something very similar. And there will be lots of other great campaigns and events that relate to those campaigns. And trying to sync those up, sharing content that appeals to all those different things I think is really important, and a great way to make sure that you're posting things that really matter and that are going to resonate with your audience, and going to help people understand what it is our groups do. Because our groups are confusing to a lot of people who have never heard of the secular movement. And this is a great way to expand that appeal and let them know why our groups matter and what our groups can do for them. Oh, timing. So in terms of reaching your audience and getting the most out of your social media engagement, and for researching this, I talked to a lot of my friends who are actually still in the music industry and are still in bands, and specifically actually some of my friends who are tour managers in charge of social media for bands. One of the things they told me that they're really doing now is they're posting around select times that they call hotspots. Hotspots are just when they know that the majority of their audience, or most of their audience, is likely to be online and likely to be checking their social media. So you should try to figure out when your group's hotspots are. One way to do this, of course, is by checking your analytics, just seeing when you're getting the most engagement. That's one way to do it. But there's also an intuitive way to do it, just by knowing your audience and knowing who you're trying to appeal to. So for example, at my school, every Tuesday and Thursday, we had about an hour and a half when there were no classes. That was a great time to post content because that's when everybody takes out their phone, starts checking their Facebook, their Twitter. And it's also when they're more likely to comment and like and do things like that and get the engagement that you really want to get. It's great to get likes and I want to get subscribers, but it's really important that you engage them too. And this can help you get that engagement that's so important. Another great way, I mean, even if your school doesn't have anything like that hour and a half break, you can kind of just know by knowing students when you should post. So for example, Sunday night's probably a really good time to post if you're trying to appeal to students, because they're not going to be going out. They're going to be staying in, probably doing homework. And I mean, checking your Facebook is a very important part of doing homework. I know that for a fact. So now, of course, actually trying to catch all those hotspots is going to be really time consuming, but a really easy way to do it actually is with one of these apps called Hootsuite. And there's a lot of Hootsuite knockoffs, or maybe Hootsuite is actually the knockoff itself. But it's a great way you can actually pre-plan posts. And you can send them out whenever you want. Really great way to make sure you hit those hotspots and that you're getting the maximum amount of engagement. And because I think social media matters so much, and because I think that you really should be putting the time into this, just pre-plan 3 posts a day. Just take the time to know when you're going to hit those hotspots, what you're going to share, and pre-plan it and make sure they're sent out. And you will see more of a reaction. Oh, Twitter. OK, cool. So I know, right? I should know what the next slide's going to be. I made this. But anyways. So one of the really cool things about Twitter is that you're guaranteed to get a much higher level of engagement. Unlike Facebook, which now I think is having a 7% yield for all the posts that it's getting. If you post from a page or even as an individual, if you're posting, there's only about a 7% chance that it's actually going to show up on the news feeds of any of your friends or subscribers. And then, of course, you can pay to get more content shared, but we're students. We're not going to pay for that. That's ridiculous. So the good thing about Twitter is that you are guaranteed to get that reach. With Twitter, be sure to retweet your followers for engagement. Be sure to use popular hashtags. A lot of this is really common knowledge. And also, though, like I said, with the Facebook posts and with sharing content related to national organizations, you can get that sort of triple hitter where you retweet, you're sharing something from a national organization that's going to resonate with your audience, and then also if you can share something that's really relative in the news. And if you need, oh, do you have a question?
Could you just clarify the 7% figure? Is it when you share something, each individual friend has a 7% chance of seeing it? Is that? That's
the way I interpreted it, yes. I tried to look for that too, and that seems to be what the consensus was. So that's what I've been working under. But if anyone finds out differently, let me know. Anyways, so a really good example of a Twitter feed that's just run amazingly is actually the Secular Student Alliance feed. As you can see, they're retweeting all the time. They're retweeting from people who have been at their events. They're using a lot of hashtags that are relevant, of course, to what they're doing. And then at the bottom here, you have not only retweeting from another national organization, but also it's related to a TED Talk that people are much more likely to view. it's not really pertinent to the news, but if this was around the same time that the TED Talk came out, actually, then it is going to be more relevant. So if you ever need examples for what just a great Twitter feed looks like, Secular Student Alliance is an awesome one to check out. Video. Video really is one of the best ways to advertise your group. And I know that's hard for a lot of us because we don't all have video and editing skills, but most of us attend liberal art colleges. Most of us with media production majors who will do video work for remarkably little money, I promise. And remarkably high quality work too. And if you're really lucky, our group was lucky enough to have someone in our group who did video work. So occasionally we were able to take him away from his classes and actually get him to do some stuff for us. But still, we never quite got as much as we wanted, but it did help us. We were able to make trailers for upcoming events. And these are really good strategies to do. And also, just little videos detailing what you did. So a really great idea that a lot of bands do, of course, is that they will release videos just telling about the show that's coming up, what's going to be going on there. There's going to be signings. There's going to be things going on after the show. If you can, it wouldn't take a lot of effort. If you have a speaker coming in, especially like an important speaker, ask them in advance if they can just make you a 30-second or a 1-minute video from their webcam, just saying that they're going to be at your school, giving an idea of what they're talking about, that they're going to be really excited to come talk to you guys, and just share that on your feed. And if you can too, because it's really, obviously, like I said, it's hard to get people to always be there to film all your stuff, but if you can, at least be sure to get people there to film your major events. It makes your group look very professional, and it lets people know what kind of events your group is putting on. And it breaks that barrier of expanding to an audience and letting them know what a secular student group does. Also, you don't need necessarily, though, media production people. There are lots of apps that you can get on your iPad and smartphones that are good for sort of easy editing video. None of them can do quite the things that those students and people with the expertise and the good equipment will be able to do. But if you need to make just like a quick trailer or just film something small that your group is doing, like Ask an Atheist Day, more than sufficient. Thank you guys for having me and listening.